Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture podcast. I am your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create an ecosystem of academic excellence. For the last 4 weeks, we've been talking about the 4 stages of fundraising. We've talked about activating your development team. Then we talked about how to create awareness and attract your ideal stakeholder. Last week, we talked about the importance of crafting a value ask and essentially how to ask for money, which is so hard, but with clarity, with competence, with confidence, and clear character skills, we can get you over the finish line. Now, this week, we're talking about one of the most critical pieces where I believe 75% of deals and donors fall off, and organizations are losing millions of dollars because of it. And the skill that we're going to learn today is how to advance the relationship forward. This idea of customer experience as a part of this journey towards asking people for the resources and funds and opportunities to engage with your organization. You know, this part is about nurturing donor relationships forward. It's like the dating process, right? This whole process is like meeting someone, loving them, falling in love, dating them, and then you asking them to be your exclusive person is when we asked them the selling. That's last week. And now they're together in a relationship. And if there's no follow-up, there's no more dates, there's no more communication, there's no more trips, there's no more dinners, there's no more I love yous, then the relationship's going to fall and the relationship's going to fail. And the same is true in this process of fundraising as well. And we can't find the fun in fundraising and what I've leaned on for the last few weeks if we don't understand why fundraising doesn't work in the first place. Fundraising doesn't work because first, there's a lack of clear goals and planning. A lot of people throw out these arbitrage numbers, these huge, audacious goals, but there's no real analysis or math to understand why are we doing this and backwards designing it to the point where this makes sense within the size, the capacity, and the team within our organization. The second reason that fundraising doesn't work for organizations is that there's a failure to build relationships. If you don't have relationships or human capital within your organization, it's going to be challenging for you to be able to receive the results from fundraising, from capital campaigning, and from the external or even internal results that you would want to be able to achieve that would also move your organization forward. Number three is that there's simply a neglect in donor retention. People give money. People may sponsor $5 or $5,000 or $50,000, but donors aren't retained because they're not nurtured through your process because there's no follow-up after that dating process. There also may be a lack of understanding or no data analysis like we talked about earlier. A lot of executive directors of nonprofits or even schools don't understand how to analyze the needs of the institution or the needs of the organization to be able to effectively understand how do we approach fundraising based upon the goals that we're trying to achieve within this organization from right now to 3 years from now to 5 years from now, and where are we going? One of the things that I've realized is that there's many leaders that lack vision. And that's why it's important to go back to week one of what we've been talking about to understand how do we build a development team that can support the initiatives that we're trying to be able to create, but then also succeed upon as well. Another reason that fundraising doesn't work for institutions and organizations is that there's insufficient marketing, whether the marketing just doesn't happen frequently enough or the marketing doesn't necessarily align or connect with the donor experience that they would hope for when they came into your specific platform. One of the realities that I had to learn in growing a company is that it takes people 6 times, most times, 6 times to just remember something once they see it. So that means if I posted something 4 days in a row, it wouldn't be until the 6th time that you would be able to remember it, see it, engage with it, and then be able to move forward with it. So it's challenging for us when we're stop posting content or we're not posting enough, especially on social media platforms, when most of our content doesn't even get seen by our whole audience because of specific algorithms. So we have to be able to market in a way that connects with our audience, but also is high quality marketing as well. Lacking innovation and adaptability is another cause and reason that fundraising doesn't work for organizations at times. And the reality of it is that we have to get creative in the ways that we're fundraising. And I'm going to talk about some strategies in this episode, and I've shared multitude of strategies in previous episodes, but I want to be able to be clear. Fundraising is our ability to be able to develop and advance our organization forward through the resources, whether that's time, talent, and treasure of other individuals or institutions. This cannot happen without human capital. And what I mean by human capital is other people's skills, resources, relationships, financial contributions. This cannot happen without people. So we have to first think through, based upon the goals that we're trying to achieve as an organization, what are the types of people that my organization needs to be supported by? And based upon these types of people, what are the causes and the problems that these individuals care most about supporting? And if my organization does not align with those causes or with those problems or create solutions for those problems or causes, then there has to be a disconnect, and you have to now be able to get back in line with the type of person, the type of problem, and then be able to create the solution based upon whatever programming or whatever it is that your organization offers. Now, once we understand that, the biggest part of this episode is understanding how to move relationships forward. Oftentimes, people do an exceptional job getting relationships. I know so many people that have charisma and personality, dress nice, and all of these different things, can connect with people like this. But 3 months down the road, they don't have those relationships, nor have they leveraged those relationships or extracted anything out of those relationships rather than a good conversation, good coffee lunch, and a good, weekend conversation, rather than the opportunities that truly can lie in engaging with the right people, understanding those right people, and how to leverage those people's time, talent, and treasure to be able to grow your institution. Now, when we think about this, this looks like an ongoing communication and communication cadence. And when I look at ongoing communication, that is one of the major steps of nurturing donor relationships forward. You have to first meet the expectations that you set at the beginning. I talked a little bit about this a few weeks ago, but it's important that when someone enters in your funnel or enters in your specific market, one of the major ways that you need to meet the expectation is initially have a survey that goes out once they join your newsletter and ask them, what is the cadence that you would feel best with us communicating to you, whether that's weekly, whether that's monthly, whether that's quarterly, or whether that's annually. One of the questions that I received earlier is, what are some effective ways to connect your mission to potential donors' values or experiences to encourage giving? One of the things that I recognize in your communication, these are ways that you ask them in the survey portion on the front end. So I may have these programs or these specific causes that our organization wants to achieve or tackle. On the initial communication, once we get them into our newsletter, and that's why it's important, like I talked about last week, to have systems, because if we bring everyone in our newsletter, the initial automatic news email that gets sent out as a confirmation is, can they please click on these specific topics so that we can be able to present the best experience for you. And one of those questions is ways to connect to our mission. It could be boom, boom, boom. What are the causes that you most care about? Now we see that 60% of the people that engage with us care about financial literacy programs. 20% of the people want us to reach out on a biweekly basis. 30% of these people have a net worth of over $100,000. Now we need to understand what are the problems that we want to be able to solve so that we can be able to create content like we talked about last night or last week, so that we can create content that now communicates directly to these individuals about these calls, and then how our organization is specifically tackling a lot of these issues. So that's just one way. Now, when we go back to the ongoing communication and communication cadence, one of the steps is definitely meeting the expectations. Once we meet expectations, the second step is for us to inform. You have to keep sponsors updated about your organization's activities, successes, and how you're demonstrating impact, especially if they've donated, whether they've donated a dollar or donated $1 million. How are you keeping them informed with what you're doing? Whether that is newsletters, whether that is LinkedIn posts. We're going to talk about data later, but we have different ways that you can communicate it. But how are you keeping them informed with what you're doing? Okay. Two of the ways that in my past roles, when I've worked within organizations, how we've done it. We sent out quarterly reports, or even monthly reports at board meetings, but quarterly reports to the public. We had bi-monthly town hall meetings where our constituents or stakeholders within our organization, you could either do them virtual, live, or in person somewhere where you're giving kind of a town hall and then offering them an opportunity. We provided annual impact reports where you were going over data. What have we done with an organization? How much did we raise? How many people did we impact? We did impact reports on an annual basis and then sent those out to different individuals as well. So how are we informing people on what we're actually doing? Step 3 is solicit. This is one of the pitfalls a lot of organizational leaders have. You need to ask for feedback and be open to potentially making adjustments or exploring additional opportunities. One of the realities that I've learned in leadership, especially within mission-driven organizations, is that many leaders put all of the pressure, feel like their pressure is coming from a board of directors, rather than understanding that your pressure is coming from your stakeholders, and those voices are much more important than your board members, because those voices are the ones actually pushing, supporting, and engaging with your brand on a day-to-day basis. And those people are the people that you serve. So we need to be able to create spaces where we can solicit information from these individuals so that we can actually be able to drive the organization forward. The next one is acknowledge. When is the last time that you actually acknowledged or shown appreciation publicly or privately and said thank you for each individual donor that's engaged with you? Whether someone bought you lunch, donated $1, committed to a $10,000 donation, connected you with another individual, volunteer time at your school. When is the last time that you thanked them? And not just thank them with the picture that you posted after the event. I mean, maybe a few months later, still acknowledging how their contribution, whether it's their time, their talent, or their treasure, led to impact within your organization. It's important to acknowledge frequently. And if you really think about it from this perspective, these are different ways that you can actually create content. Day 1 could be, hey, what are your expectations? Day 2, we're informing. The content is around informing. Day 3 could be, all right, how are we soliciting? Maybe we're asking a question and getting a poll or feedback. Day 4 could be acknowledging. We're just saying thank you to someone on Thursday. And then the next stage of this ongoing communication, and why this is so important, is involvement, involve. When is the last time you invited a sponsor or a donor or a supporter to an event? You gave them opportunities to experience their giving in action. You connected them with some community that they're supporting, So let's say I'm engaging with young women in a specific demographic in a specific area, and our donors are supporting that area. Am I inviting my donors to that specific event to see this in action and taking pictures with them and acknowledging them and connecting them with students in the specific community as well? These are all things that we can be doing on a day-to-day basis that doesn't take anything besides a phone call and an email follow-up. This is what advancing the relationship forward that allows us, maybe we got $1,000 sponsorship or $1 sponsorship, but just by building and nurturing that relationship, this is how people stay engaged to continue to give to our organization over a period of time. The next stage is deliver on the promise. One of the challenges that I have personally and professionally seen is when people and organizations have donated money and given financial contributions, and the organization put that money into different places or allocated it differently or mismanaged those funds. That's why there has to be character that exists in this process and integrity. You want to deliver on the promise and follow through and showcase impact and track that data. It's super important. It's super important so that you can showcase what it is that you're doing. That's why I said those annual impact reports, monthly board reports, quarterly town hall meetings, weekly updates when you're informing people. You want to be able to be transparent in your leadership, okay? And then now so the first stage is ongoing communication. Second stage or step is staying organized. So I'm going to give you some questions to ask yourself as a leader, as you're approaching this specific work in nurturing relationships forward. Number one is, how are you tracking impact? How are you tracking it? Is a tool that you're using? Do you even know how we're tracking impact? Do you even know the measurable that you're trying to create? And a measurable is actually something that can measure the success of the institution or the initiative that you're doing. Why are you doing what you're doing, and how is this actually helping people? Whether it's students, whether that's young men, young women, whatever it is, how are you tracking impact? What tool are you using to track impact? Number two, how often are you sharing this data? Is it on a monthly? Is it internally? And how often are you sharing it internally as well as externally? The third question is, how many case studies do you have? And I didn't say testimonials, because testimonials can be created on ChatGPT. I mean case studies. And what a case study looks like is, this was the problem when we came in and started working with this group of students, or ran this program, or started working with this student. Here's what we did with this student. And here is the result. So here's the problem. Here's the project overview. Here's what we did and how we engaged. And here is the ultimate result. And here is the impact. That is a case study. So how many case studies do you have to showcase what you're doing is actually effective? That's a case study. That's the power between a case study and a testimonial. And then, where is this placed on the website? Where is this placed on your digital platforms? How often are these shared? Okay. All right. Here's the next question. How much, based upon your data, not your words, not your pride, not your emotions, how much have you grown over the last few years? Whether financial growth, whether impact growth, whether it be people that you've served, whether it be donors that you've acquired, whether it be fundraising that you received, how much have you grown year over year? And I need percentage growth. And if it's negative percentage growth or no growth, that means it's a leadership issue. That means we need to go back to the initial questions of all of those reasons that fundraising doesn't work, and we need to see what is going on. Next step, next question, and this is the last question. How are you innovating? Because if we're not growing, we're not innovating, or we're not leading, or we don't know our product. That's it. If we're not growing, we're not clearing goals. If we're not growing, we don't have relationships. If we're not growing, we are neglecting the donor relationships. If we're not growing, we lack understanding or have no data. If we're not growing, we don't have good marketing. If we're not growing, we lack innovation. If we're not growing, we lack connection to the cause. What is the story behind our organization and why someone should connect, but then also donate? What is the story behind our organization that someone will connect with and why someone will donate? I think there are some amazing causes out here. I do. I think anyone that has something that's willing to give back, I think they are just an amazing human being. But there's a difference between being an amazing human being and actually having a system that you can grow a business and an organization forward. Because the further that you grow it, the more impact that you'll be able to create, the more people that you'll be able to touch and empower. So this is why this work is important. Here's the next question, and here's a new section. It's about mutually beneficial offerings. A lot of times we're asking people for money. You have to ask yourself, why should I give you money? If you weren't you and you weren't leading this cause, why should a donor give you money? Versus the other organizations that are out there asking for the same money from the same exact people. Why should a donor donate to you? After they donate, what is the incentive that they will get from donating? Whether that is marketing opportunities, whether that is opportunities to pilot one of their mentorship programs with children, whether that is speaking engagements, whether that is their logo is placed in your school newsletter or on your field. What is the incentive? Then number 3 is, how does this help that individual or their business? And then the last question, when we look at mutual beneficial relationships or offerings, how are you two collaborating together so that this is not just a one-off giving experience? All of these steps today are how we move relationships forward. One of the challenges that I see, and one of the questions that I was asked, is what are some effective ways to connect your mission to potential donors' values or experiences to encourage giving? My answer to that specific question is not to find effective ways to connect your mission to a potential donor's values or experiences to encourage giving, is to identify companies and people that are already in alignment with your mission and your company values. Now, a challenge, like I talked about in week 1, is that if we're not clear in our company values, if we're not clear in our mission, if we're not clear in our offerings, if we don't have leaders and board members that are aligned in mission and values, if our programming doesn't align with our mission and values, then it's challenging for us to be able to show up confidently, prepared, and with clarity if we're not leveraging mission-driven leadership. So rather than doing that, there's opportunities and platforms like Donor Choose that you can leverage and see where these donors are giving, what causes they care about, what causes they've been giving to over the past few years or decades. But even with platforms out there that showcase all of that information, all of the people that are going after these same people are on those platforms too. So a better question is, how can I separate myself from those people? And that's where we get into relationship building. That's where we get into the power of your marketing, because if you're marketing clear values, if you're marketing mission, if your marketing is aligned with that, now you know that the people that come into your network are already aligned with that. That's why they wanted to connect with you. That's why they wanted to engage with you, because they saw something in your mission. They saw something in your values. They saw something in your comments. They saw something in your programming. They saw something in your leaders that were in alignment with their values. People connect with people before they connect with organizations. So that's what I need us to do, If we want people that are connecting with us based upon our mission and our values and they're in alignment, then we have to showcase that more. Like I said earlier, it takes oftentimes 6 times for someone to see something before they can engage with it. If we want to be able to create change in our community, if we want to be able to transform the people, the children that we were called to transform, if we want to lead this work, then we have to go back through these last few weeks, review these videos, review these episodes, and begin to execute. This is another episode of the Contagious Culture podcast. My name is Kyle King, and we'll see you all next episode.